came back into the market in a very big way.
What we know now is Wall Street can bring down Main Street.
People are seeing this, and those memories of fear are coming back.
When you have a 401k or a 403b, those kinds of accounts, they are incredibly susceptible to downturns.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped more than 900 points. More than 900 points.
There are questions about how to best save for retirement.
Part of the problem is confusion.
Time keeps on slipping into the future.
The first rule in investment is don't lose. And the second rule in investment is don't forget the first rule. And that's all the rules there are.
When the market goes up, you go up. When the market goes down, you don't go down. Save Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
Welcome to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole. Brad is a retirement and income specialist, primarily serving Springfield, but he's sought after nationally for his expertise in helping people secure their retirements. Mr. Pistole is a licensed life insurance professional in the states of Missouri, Arkansas, and Kansas, and he specializes in working with people who are near retirement and those who have already retired with wealth management, income planning, and asset protection strategies.
Save Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
And now, here to talk with you about securing your retirement, your host, Brad Pistole.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again today for Safe Money Radio. You might be listening on the radio. You might be watching our podcast, listening to our podcast, watching us on YouTube. Whichever way you're with us today, we're glad that you're here. And if you are listening on the radio and you didn't know we had a podcast, you certainly can go to YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. Just type in Safe Money Radio with Brad Pistole, and that lets you go in and listen to it anytime you want to. So thank you so much for joining us today. We've been on the air right here in the Ozarks for the past 14 years. We're the longest-running financial planning show in the Ozarks, and we truly enjoy giving great, sound education each week right here on Safe Money Radio. Now, for those of you that have been listening to me for a long time, you're probably glad that I started having guests come on a couple of years ago so that you don't have to listen to me all the time. And today we have a returning guest, and she's a great friend. I call her Sis. She is like a sister to me. From way down south in Atlanta, Georgia. Go Chiefs. Sorry you guys didn't make it there this year. But anyway, we're glad that Heather Schreiber is with us today, national Social Security expert. And I'll tell you what, the rap sheet on her and the things she's accomplished is quite long. So I'm going to read a few things here, and then we'll have Heather come in and talk to us. So, friends, she has almost 30 years in the financial services industry experience, and she's done everything under the sun. She's a writer, a keynote speaker. She's on radio. She trains other advisors nationwide. She does seminars. She's the creator of Social Security Advisor, a monthly newsletter that goes out for professionals. I've written for that advisor newsletter a couple of times in the last 6 months and enjoy that information. She's a frequent IRA guest expert for Ed Slott, America's IRA expert. She speaks at conferences all over the country. And of course, she is a fellow retirement income certified professional and a national Social Security advisor. So there's a lot more, but Heather, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Brad, it is always fun to banter with you.
Absolutely. So how's the weather down there in Georgia today?
It's actually nice. It's, unpredictable like it is everywhere, but today I think we're going to get a peak of sun in the midst of some rain in between.
Well, for those of you that know, I had mentioned several weeks ago she was going to be on the show. Our last potential show got canceled by snow and ice, and 1 week later, it was 60 degrees here. So it's the world. We know all about the diversity of weather here in the Ozarks. So, Heather, tell us, if you will, as we get started today, for those that are listening, maybe people don't know who you are, tell our listeners just a little bit about you and what it is that you do, what you're passionate about.
Oh gosh, what I'm passionate about, lots of things, but like you said, 30 years, this year will mark my 30th year in retirement income planning in that space. I started with it sort of by accident back, when I graduated from college. I was living in California at the time, graduated from UC out there, and started working for Franklin Templeton Mutual Funds and just happened to be placed in the retirement call center, which I guess was a little bit step up from shareholder services. And I just sort of developed a fascination with planning for retirement. And I've made it a career. I work with financial advisors. Brad, you are one of my favorites. But I work with financial advisors and CPAs and some attorneys all across the country, sort of navigating that landscape of how to develop retirement income strategies that will last a lifetime, right? And so that's what we're both passionate about. So Social Security happens to be one of the things that I'm incredibly passionate about, just because there's so much to know about it. It's such an important income source for most people. And so that is something I kind of hung my hat on about 15 years ago, decided, you know what, there's a lot of misinformation. Social Security Administration is specifically prohibited from engaging in anything with future retirees or those approaching retirement about what they should do. And so I decided that I would make it my mission to understand it and to get that information out to the financial advisors that are helping these people retire well. So
that's awesome. And I'll tell all of our listeners, and anyone knows this that's ever been around you, but it's kind of like if you Google Ed Slott or Tom Hegna or Dr. Wade Fowle, you just type in Heather's name in YouTube, and like she pops up everywhere, all these interviews and people that financial professionals she's talked to and places that she's spoken, and you're like, wow. And, I first knew her as a Social Security expert, and then you get to talking to her and realize she's a financial expert in all realms. And that part of that's being a retirement income certified professional. She's very, very well rounded and knowing all aspects of financial planning, whether it's IRAs or Social Security or income planning, income flooring, annuities. I mean, you name it. She is a professional. So we are so grateful to have her on the show, and we're going to take a quick break. But I want to tell you this, because I have a Social Security expert on here, and so many of you who listen know that is, for most of you, a third to 2/3 of your retirement income, and you've got all kinds of questions. So I'm going to take some of our own specific situations that I've dealt with here locally in the Ozarks, and I'm going to ask some of these questions to Heather when we come back, and we're going to jump into some Social Security and retirement income planning questions. So if you're listening right now and you want more information about what we do, what we offer, you can call us anytime. Our phones are answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the phone number is easy to remember. It's 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. And we are passionate about teaching consumers how to protect their life savings and how to generate lifetime income streams that they can never outlive. That could be from pensions, annuities, or Social Security, and we'll teach you how to maximize those streams of income. So just call us anytime at 866-780-7233. Request our free information or schedule a free financial consultation. We'll be happy to meet with you free of charge. Again, the number is 866-780-7233, and there's someone standing by right now to take your call. Well, I must take a short break. This is Brad Pistole, and you're listening to Safe Money Radio. Let's pause for some exciting announcements.
Do you realize that even a minor recurring fee of 2% in your portfolio can cost you up to 1/3 of your retirement savings? If you're now paying a 2% fee, that can add up to 33% of your retirement savings lost to broker or management fees over about 30 years. Think about it. 33 cents of every dollar you've saved will be lost before you even enter into retirement. And it doesn't end there. That same 2% fee can cost you another 33% while you're in your retirement. So ask yourself, just whose retirement am I saving for? Stop financing someone else's retirement. Pick up the phone and call us now at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
This is a financial crisis, and anyone who doesn't admit that is just kidding himself. Although there are more and more people saying that the U.S. economy will be in a recession, it is still a minority position.
These are real numbers, what's happening in Europe, what's happening overseas, what's happening on the political landscape right now.
Let's go to the financial desk in New York to find out what's happening on Wall Street.
Sonny, there's only one word to describe what's happening, and that is panic.
You're listening to Safe Money Radio.
I think it's going to get worse.
Now back to more Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole.
Welcome back. I'm Brad Pistole, your host of Safe Money Radio. I am a capital preservation and strategic income planning specialist working with clients right here in Springfield and Ozark, Missouri. Now, friends, if you're just now joining us, we have with us on the show today National Social Security expert Heather Schreiber. Heather, thank you again so much for joining us today, and we're going to jump right in. And this situation literally happened 2 weeks ago. Hunter and I were in a meeting with someone, and we keep hearing this over and over. And I thought, we've got to ask this to Heather and have her talk to our listeners about this, because even though I wrote this a couple of weeks ago, we came across it again just yesterday. So I know this is happening a lot. We had a client come in, and their mother had passed away, and they had received a lot of assets and income that they, of course, couldn't avoid. They had to sell some things. And when she came in, the first thing she said was, "Oh my goodness, my IRMAA is killing me." So what in the world is IRMAA? What does it involve? How does it affect retirees? Talk to us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so Aunt Irma is the aunt that we never want to visit us, but sometimes does if we're not aware. And Aunt Irma shows up 2 years later is the problem. So IRMAA, or also known as the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, is a surcharge that some folks who experience either higher income throughout retirement, or they have a one-time windfall, like it sounds like the one that you're talking about where they inherited something. It is related to how much someone will pay for their Medicare Part B premium and Medicare Part D. And it's related to what's called MAGI, Modified Adjusted Gross Income, and Social Security when they're determining Medicare premiums for the current year. So, for example, 2023 premiums, and for most people this year it actually went down, right? It went to $164.90. Last year it was $170.10, so we actually got a reprieve. But for most folks, that's what they'll pay. But if their income, and Social Security looks at the income 2 years prior, they're looking at that modified adjusted gross income, which is adjusted gross income plus tax-exempt interest. If that income goes above a certain threshold, so for 2023, if 2021's MAGI for someone who's single was above $97,000, or for married folks that are filing jointly is above $194,000, then you start getting into this what I call IRMAA territory. And so oftentimes you don't think about it. You think, well, I inherited this, but what's happening? I never heard anything about it until I got my letter for 2023 saying I'm going to pay an income-related monthly adjustment amount in addition to, so it's a surcharge, in addition to the standard premium that most people pay, right? So that's the rub. And so what I always say is, I have a presentation that I do that's the critical ages of retirement income planning, and I always include age 63 in there. And everyone's like, 63, that's kind of a weird, we've got the age 50 for catch-ups, and we've got, 59 and a half is a magic age because the 10% penalty doesn't apply. Why 63? And I say, well, for folks that are going to enroll in Medicare, most people at 65 do. Now, there are some circumstances where they may not, right? They still have creditable coverage through a health, an employer-based plan or their spouse's plan, certain situations where they won't. But at 63, that's when they're going to start looking at your income. So go back to your person that said, wait a minute, I inherited this. Well, the likelihood is this inheritance probably occurred 2 years ago, and it's just now catching up with them. Now, what happens with, let's take the 65-year-old that has now retired, but at 63, they were still working, and they're saying, wait a minute, that's not fair. I was still gainfully employed, so of course my income was above that limit. Why am I being charged an IRMAA 2 years later when I'm truly now I'm retired. So there are certain things called life-changing events that will that the Social Security Administration do consider ways to say, hey, wait a minute, no fair, get Aunt Irma out of my life because 2 years ago I was still working, now I'm not. What are those? So it's not things, unfortunately, like an inheritance. It's things like marriage, divorce or annulment, loss of a spouse, death of a spouse, cessation, work stoppage, or pullback on work hours. Loss of income producing property. Now that isn't things like I sold a house and I lost the house, but now I got this big fat capital gain. That doesn't qualify. So there are certain things that are considered life-changing events, so that if someone says, wait a minute, I'm being notified that I'm going to pay this extra premium, this surcharge, how do I get out of it? Well, there is a form, SS Form 44, life-changing event form, that the person can say, wait a minute, let's use a more current year of income to substantiate why I shouldn't have to pay it. So IRMAA is something that for folks that have planned well, that might have sources of income that might be consistent and put them over it. You know, those are the folks that need to worry, or the people that have just a 1 year. Now, here's the good news about Aunt Irma as well, is that if this is just a one-time event, so an inheritance, and that somehow that there's a taxable event, let's say it was an IRA inheritance, for example, and it did bump up the magi above the limit, then that's only a rub for a 12-month period, right? Because once they go back and they look again at the next year's magi, then if it's within the thresholds of the standard premiums, it goes back down. But the other side of that is, let's suppose you have two people on Medicare. Does it affect both of them? And the answer is yes. For that 12-month period, it's going to affect both of them. So you have to think about, you have to start forward planning when you're working with your financial advisor to say, okay, let's make sure that we are cognizant of the fact that what I do now is going to affect me 2 years from now if I'm well above it. So we have to think about those things.
That's super good, because in the situation we were talking about yesterday, and Heather, you'll certainly understand this. I'm sure minds of a lot of people are spinning right now trying to think back to 2 years ago and how that affects the future. But this person received inheritance because a spouse died. There was a business account, and their financial advisor and their CPA didn't explain anything about what would happen if she took a distribution from an S-Corp account, which was tax deferred. She took $100,000 out in December and $100,000 out in January. So guess what? That's 2 separate tax years. So that messed with Aunt Irma. I'm stealing that, by the way. That messed with Aunt Irma for the next 2 years. And she, just so that people can understand the impact, and I'll have you speak to the specifics of it, but she said her IRMAA or her Medicare premium went up from like $146 to $500 and something, just so that people understand this isn't like a $20 surcharge. So it can be a big deal, right?
It can. In fact, I'm trying to think this year, I don't know if I have it written down somewhere, but it can go up to upwards of $500 a month from the standard one. And it's a graduated scale. The other thing is, it's not like taxes and Social Security benefits, which it's not a cliff situation, but IRMAA is. So the moment that you go $1 over into the next premium band, you're paying it for the 12 months. So you really have to work with someone and advisors who understand, because I tell you what, I know you and I both do it, Brad. We're like 63. That 63rd year, if you're planning on enrolling in Medicare at 65, you need to start thinking about the planning strategies that you're using. Because the other thing we're always trying to do is mitigate taxes in retirement, right? So what's the one way or a good way to do that? Roth conversions is a very good planning strategy, particularly while I say taxes are on sale through the end of 2025, right? They're going to sunset back up to the pre-2017 Act's tax rate. So people are doing these strategies that in the long run are really good for helping mitigate the risk of tax erosion on retirement income. But you have to be mindful of, is this going to affect my IRMAA premium? My Medicare premium through IRMAA? Is she going to come visit me? Is it worth it? Some people might say, well, I'm going to go ahead and take take IRMAA in for a year and pay the piper just so that I can do that type of planning to get me into a better place down the road in retirement. So you have to just look at these strategies. And even Social Security claiming, even Medicare premiums, it's all so holistic. You can't look at anything without looking at the other thing, right? So that's why we do, and that's why we have a passion for what we do. It's like we all have to come together and say, okay, what do we really need to look at? It isn't, I should file for Social Security at X date. You can't do that without looking at everything else that's going on, right?
Very, very good. And I know we kind of went long in this segment, and there's because this is such an important topic. Just missing one thing or not knowing one thing can really impact your taxes and your premiums for the future. So make sure that you're working with a retirement income certified professional who knows all aspects of retirement planning. That's what we do here at Safe Money Radio. Hunter and I are both RICPs. Heather is an RICP. So if you want someone to give you a free financial consultation and take a look at your specific situation, just call us anytime and request a free financial consultation. You can call us at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. I'll even give you a copy of my book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. And the foreword for that book was written by America's IRA expert, Ed Slott. So call us anytime at 866-780-7233. There's someone standing by right now to take your call. Since I have to take a break, now would be a great time to call me for a complimentary copy of my best-selling book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. And I'll also give you a copy of my Safe Money Kit. My number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Isn't it time to stop exposing your retirement to market risk? You're listening to Safe Money Radio with Brad Pistole.
Do you own an annuity? Do you understand what it does, how it works, and if it's right for your retirement plan? Some annuities have fees that might not be justified by their benefits. Some annuities are exposed to significant market risk. Worse yet, if an annuity was sold without proper planning, it can cause unintended consequences for your retirement. If you own an annuity, it's probably a good idea to find out more about how it works and if it's right for you. It's time to give Brad Pistole a call now at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Brad will help you review the features and benefits of annuities you currently own without any obligation. Once again, you can call Brad now at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
Most important thing in business is honesty, integrity, hard work, family, never forgetting where we came from.
You're listening to Safe Money Radio. Now back to more Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole.
Thank you for tuning in to Safe Money Radio. I am Brad Pistole, a market risk mitigation specialist helping clients with retirement money preservation and income planning. Now, friends, if you're joining us today, we have Heather Schreiber with us, a national Social Security expert. And Heather, I want to ask you a question because I know this last year and this year, 2023, there's been a lot of talk about what everyone's calling the Great Resignation. I know personally, I've never seen so many 55-year-olds, 55 to 60-year-olds retire. They're just like, I'm done, I'm out, I'm over with. And a lot of them have pensions, but a lot of them don't. They're just tired of working. And so that's going to bring up the age-old question, whether or not they have pensions, whether or not they can withdraw from their retirement accounts before 59 and a half without penalty. And it depends on what kind of job they had, who they worked for, right? But it brings up the really big question that falls into a realm you deal with a lot, and that's Social Security. So What key things should a couple consider when they're thinking about when they should trigger their Social Security payments? I know that's a loaded question. It depends on a lot of factors, but what kind of things should they consider before they trigger their Social Security?
Well, I would say, generally speaking, when people retire, they look at retirement and Social Security claiming sort of as one and the same. Now, obviously, the 55-year-old can't file for Social Security right away, but for most people, they'll say, hey, and it makes logical sense. I'm going to retire, and I'm going to replace that income with sort of my floor of income, which for most is Social Security. But that you have to be careful about that. And the reason I say that is because that is one of the few sources that, for those that don't have pensions, and a lot of people don't, that's one of the few sources of income that's going to last for as long as you live. So making that decision in lieu of everything else, we have to obviously look at the health, how healthy is the individual and the couple. Is there a disparity in the income benefits of couples? You talk about couples, you have to look at that claiming decision in respect to the couple. Because if I'm working with, if you present to me a client or a prospect that has Social Security benefits and there is a marked disparity in the income benefits, which we do tend to see still fairly often, what do we need to be concerned about? Even if the higher earning spouse says, I have poor health, it makes sense for me to file early. How can that be problematic later on? Well, because that higher earning spouse, when they file, as I've always said, is the gift that keeps on giving or not. Because if I have a spouse that is a much lower earning spouse, then if my higher earning spouse does in fact pass away early, if I were looking at that person singly, I'd say that probably made sense to do it, right? Because they're only going to be getting benefits for as long as they live. But if that person is married to someone who is going to be dependent upon what my higher earning spouse did in terms of claiming, what happens when one spouse dies? One of those two benefits goes away. It's the lower earning one. So if my unhealthy higher earning spouse filed at 62 or 63 or whatever the case may be, then as that lower earning spouse, I'm going to step up to that higher benefit when they pass, but it's going to be far less than if that person had said, wait a minute, let me look at how I'm going to file in lieu of both lives, right? Because I might have a spouse that's very healthy and he or she may be living into their 80s, 90s, gosh, maybe even 100. So I say, be careful about that, of thinking as soon as I retire, I should file. You have to really look. Certainly, you want to look at health, but you want to look at health of both. You want to look at their benefit amounts. How dependent is the lower earning spouse going to be on the survivor income of that claiming age of that higher earning spouse? Very important. And a lot of folks don't really understand exactly what happens when one spouse dies. So we need to make sure that we're looking at the longevity of the couple for sure.
Heather, as you know, you've probably heard everything under the sun, and especially doing a lot of public presentations, and you hear what people coffee shop talk about what they think they're going to get or keep when someone dies. I've heard it all because someone said something at a coffee table or in a church life group or whatever, and I'll say, no, that's not it at all. You lose the lower income amount. And when you've walked through that either as a married person who's lost a spouse or like I just did with my mother. My father passed away in August of 2022. My mother's income from Social Security was almost $900 a month. No way you slice that. That's a $900 a month loss of income from your budget. And so to use some real numbers just quickly, let's say one spouse is $2,500 and one's $900. You're going to lose that $900. But here's where it can really impact you. What if they were both income earners their entire life and one was $2,000 and one was $1,800? You're losing $1,800 a month from your income. And that's why it's such an important thing before you trigger your income to know your whole overall package. Because if you don't understand that in the future, hey, we might be losing $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 a month from our income, there better be something there to replace it, an annuity or some type of savings vehicle or a life insurance policy. Because if not, that couple, that family is going to get into financial trouble. We watch it happen all the time.
Well, and exactly. And the thing is, if you do have one spouse that is less healthy than the other, and they do die early, they say they die in their early 70s or whatever the case may be, that's that much longer that surviving spouse has to have sustainable income. You know, you've said, like using that example, they lose $1,800 a month, but then it's that much longer that they're stepping into that one income, and they need to be talking about how do we replace that income, because if they don't have a pension, and even those that do are lucky enough to have pensions, generally speaking, it's a joint and survivor 50%. So again, we're losing 50% even in that income source. So that's why it's so critically important to say, okay, let's stop for a moment. We're going to retire. Where are we going to replace this income, and how should we strategically replace it so that we're maximizing? It's not how much you save, it's how much you keep, right? So we need to figure out how to build that income and guarantee that income for as long as the last of the two spouses lives.
Absolutely. And I know there's some of you are listening, some of you are watching. We'll just do a quick close up here. If we get my camera to focus on it for a minute, there we go. So there's Heather's Social Security Advisor newsletter. And if you want to learn more about what she does and having the answers to all kinds of things like this, I know she deals with a lot of questions and answers in the newsletter. So Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can go to www.irahelp.com and they can click on newsletters and subscribe there to your monthly Social Security net newsletter. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's Ed's website. They can go to Ed's website and download either of our newsletters or both, or they can go to my website, either one. But that's what's great about it is I talk to so many people on a daily basis. So that's where the content comes from. There's so much information to cover.
And what's your website address, Heather?
It's HLSretirementconsulting.com.
Very, very good. If you're listening right now and you want to learn more information about Social Security planning, income planning, or maybe something we just said really caught your attention when you thought, yeah, there's a whole lot more to planning than just deciding to trigger at 62 because you can. You need to be thinking about replacement income and making sure that you're working with a qualified financial professional. Here at our office, both Hunter and I are retirement income certified professionals through the American College of Financial Services, and this is something that we specialize in. You can call us anytime at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233, and just ask for a free financial consultation. Stick with us because after the break, we're going to be back with Heather with more questions. 866-780-7233. Someone standing by right now to take your call. Since I have to take a break, now would be a great time to call me for a complimentary copy of my best-selling book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. And I'll also give you a copy of my Safe Money Kit. My number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Isn't it time to stop exposing your retirement to market risk? You're listening to Safe Money Radio with Brad Pistole.
Business owners, some of you have worked 20 and even 30 years to build your business. You're ready to sell this asset and go into retirement. You don't want to risk or lose any of your hard-earned money. Property owners, have you just sold your property and need to turn that money into lifetime income? How about 401k participants? Have you recently changed jobs or reached age 59 and a half and have a retirement account that you don't want to expose to market loss? If you have money you're counting on for retirement, we can ensure that you sleep at night with our income and wealth preservation planning. Don't gamble your life's work away if you are nearing or in retirement. Take some chips off the table and do something to take the stress out of retirement. Call 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
We want more from them, so let's give them. Let's show them your pure joy of the game. Let's bury the attitude a little bit and show them...
Wait, you're telling me to dance?
No. I'm saying to get back to the guy who first started playing this game. Remember? Way back when you were a kid? It wasn't just about the money, was it? Was it? Was it?
Do your job.
You're listening to Safe Money Radio. You're listening to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistol.
Welcome back to Safe Money Radio. I'm Brad Pistol, a certified financial fiduciary and a safe money retirement specialist. Now, Heather, before the break, we were talking about specifically the age-old question of when should I trigger Social Security and all the different things that come into play regarding that, and it's a lot. I want to piggyback on that. I'm going to have to read this when I wrote the notes down. I wish I had it all memorized, but I don't. So on average, a 60-year-old male today should expect to live for 22 more years, and a 60-year-old female should expect to live 25 more years. I learned that from you. So a lot of people try to figure out what's the break-even point. They try to do this math science thing. When should I trigger based on what my break-even point is if I live to a certain age? So is this the best way to approach trying to set up your lifetime income plan, or is there a better way? What do you think?
You know, it's a good place to start, and naturally it makes sense that people would say, hey, how long do I have to wait, or how long do I have to live exactly for it to make sense for me to forego income when I could take Social Security at 62? I mean, if my full retirement age is 67 because I was born in 1960 or later, and that's 5 years of income that I'm foregoing. So how long exactly? That makes perfect sense. And certainly when you're dealing with a single person, I'm a lot more comfortable having that as our starting point. But here's the thing, is that Social Security, the calculation of the benefits, so whether you take it at 62, whether you collect it at 67, or whether you wait beyond, or 66, whatever your full retirement age is, or whether you wait to as late as age 70, the theory behind that, when the calculation of reductions for taking it early versus the delayed retirement credit increases for taking it even a few months beyond full retirement age, was that the Social Security said you're going to get basically the same amount of income because we've mathematically calculated the reductions and the increases based upon the average life expectancy. What's the problem with that? What are we seeing these days? Everyone is living longer and longer. And when those calculations were done, those reduction factors or those increases, it's based upon life expectancy tables that haven't been updated for the fact that people are living longer. So that's part of the issue. So people always say, well, what is the break even? Well, I mean, really, to make it more beneficial from a mathematically cumulative lifetime standpoint of benefits, you only have to live to about 78 or longer for it to make more sense for you not to file at 62. I mean, I don't say, and I always say everyone's situation is so unique that I would never say never file at 62, nor would I say everyone should file at 70. If everyone could wait to file at 70, great, but that's not the reality, okay? So I would say, you know, most people, if they can, probably shouldn't file as early as they can because we're all living longer, right? So if we're living into our 80s and if we're living even to 82, 83, it actually makes more sense to wait because that is a guaranteed source of income that will last for your lifetime. So the longer you live, the more you're having to deplete other sources of income to supplement, right? To supplement the Social Security that you might have decided to take early. So I can go on forever, but for break even. So break even is a good place to start, but I wouldn't stop there. And particularly if you're dealing with a married couple, you have to look at the lifetime of both of them and the sustainability of income for the last spouse to die. And a lot of people fall short of doing that. They're not thinking about it that way because there's still a very significant chance that one of the two is going to be alive in their 90s. There's a 25% or more chance that one of them is going to be alive in their 90s. And so turning that Social Security on button at 62 may not be beneficial to the sustainability of everything else that then has to supplement the retirement income for as long as they both live.
And this is why I think this is important. There's so much bad information out there, that information that's not true. Just quickly, Heather, share with our listener why it's important to defer. Like the average person may think, oh, well, it's just me choosing to wait longer to get closer to my full retirement age. But what happens to the benefit of someone each year that they defer their Social Security?
Yeah, so the percentage is different between, 62 to your full retirement age. The reduction factors are different. But, if you have a full retirement age, if you're someone born in 1960 or later, and your full retirement age is 67, you're getting a full 30% reduction for filing at 62. Now, the theory is you're getting 5 more years of income, but it becomes the gamble isn't on your side the longer you live, because you're, of course, taking that 30% permanent reduction. Now, I say permanent. There's always an exception to every rule. If someone withdraws their application and pays back benefits within 12 months, and they can start over and say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. They can do that once. But for the most part, there is an actual reduction based upon the number of months you file early. On the flip side, once you get beyond your full retirement age, then there is what's called a delayed retirement credit. That is a monthly credit to the tune of 2/3 of 1%. You've heard this 8% per year. That's where that comes from. So 8% builds for waiting beyond full retirement age to file. That can be pretty significant. And the other thing is, once you file for your benefit, your cost of living adjustment, right, is going to be based upon that number. So if you file early, your cost of living adjustment, we just got the 8.7% cost of living adjustment that started in benefit payments in January. If you're taking your benefit at 62, that 8.7% increase is going to be less for you than someone who might wait a little bit longer and get, if they wait till full retirement age and get 100% of their primary insurance amount, so that the 8.7% is obviously based on a higher percentage. So you have to kind of look at everything together and figure out what makes most sense. Look at what other sources of income that the person has and say, okay, might it make sense for me to draw down an IRA and let my Social Security wait a little bit longer?
Keep rolling up. That's right. Friends, everything that you've heard is so good. And I know at a recent meeting that we were at together, Ed said the average spouse lives 14.2 years after the death of the first spouse. So your decision for when you take Social Security affects that remaining income benefit for many, many years, often up to 2 decades. So we got to be thinking about the entire package whenever we make our decisions to file for Social Security. If you're listening right now, and you want more information regarding when and how to file for Social Security or any type of retirement income planning, just give us a call. We do not charge fees to meet with our clients. Call and ask for a free financial consultation or a copy of my book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. You can call us anytime at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. And we'll be right back after this break to talk more with Heather. Since I have to take a break, now would be a great time to call me for a complimentary copy of my best-selling book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. And I'll also give you a copy of my Safe Money Kit. My number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Isn't it time to stop exposing your retirement to market risk? You're listening to Safe Money Radio with Brad Pistole.
Did you know that your Social Security could be much higher depending on what option you choose for claiming your benefit? Social Security income is not as simple as some think. When should you take it? Should you only take your spouse's benefit while you continue to work? Deciding how to receive your Social Security benefit can make your head spin. Don't decide about your retirement without the facts. Call us now and ask for your complimentary Social Security guide at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
We begin with the economic crisis, which is being felt by every major market.
How we got into this mess to begin with.
The global market's suffering a sell-off, but this optimist on Wall Street does see light at the end of the tunnel.
You're listening to Safe Money Radio. What do you do in the morning? Do you spend the time with your first cup of coffee looking at the newspaper or watching financial news? How would you like to get that part of your life back? Our clients spend more time enjoying their retirement than watching their money. Wouldn't you rather enjoy your mornings instead of filling them with the stress of the markets? Call us now and we can show you how to sleep at night without worrying about market risk and outliving your retirement money. Our phone number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Now back to more Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistol.
Welcome back. I'm Brad Pistol, your host of Safe Money Radio. I am a capital preservation and strategic income planning specialist working with clients right here in Springfield and Ozark, Missouri. So Heather, I want to ask one more question and then we'll wrap things up here. But I want to ask you this. For anyone who is about to retire, if they've hit age 60, I ask our clients all the time, we've got about 1,500 clients, when do you start getting flyers in the mail? And they're like, oh my goodness, I'm already getting them. And it's overwhelming. And it's come to dinner, steak dinner, go, watch this webinar, you name it, what the Social Security training event at our facility. Everyone's an expert. Everyone knows answers that no one else knows. And it's never going to stop, right? And it's going to be Medicare and Social Security planning and income planning and all of it. What advice would you give to someone regarding all this information that's coming in about how to be careful when it comes to choosing who you talk to about your financial planning?
Yeah, and I get them too. I mean, I'm not 60 yet, but I still get I always open them. I'm curious, and let's face it, everybody wants to know about Social Security. It's such a critical income source. So I would say, let your gut be your guide. I mean, I say anybody who is touting fear, so, you should, fear tactics I don't like, it's going to be gone, that kind of fear mongering I don't like. And also, you don't want any money that makes sweeping generalizations about what to do with any aspect, but certainly not Social Security. Everybody should just do this. Because to me, that says the advisor isn't concerned about looking at you as an individual or as a couple, because it is so incredibly important that this decision not be made in a bubble. I always say that. So, I always say, let your gut be your guide. When you're talking, if you go to these seminars or events or whatever, certainly get as much as you can out of it. But I don't like sweeping generalizations, and I will never give one. Everyone always asks me, when should people file? I will not tell you everyone should do X, because it is so unique to everyone's situations when they plan to retire, what their income need is, what other sources of income they have saved or earmarked for retirement. Do they have health challenges? What's their goals? Even legacy planning. If someone says to me, legacy, I want to leave something to my kids, that to me, that plays into the plan for Social Security. So I'd say, just trust your gut. The other thing is, I'm very passionate about the right information. There is so much misinformation about Social Security, which is why I have made it a mission to make sure that people understand it. Because, like I said earlier, Social Security representatives, they're not there to guide you. They're there to answer yes or no questions and take your application, whether that's online or going down to the office to do it. So you have to empower yourself. You have to recognize that you probably do need help with trying to put all of those pieces together. The other sources of income that you have that you're going to use to supplement your Social Security, that makes a difference, right? Because we haven't even talked, that could be a whole segment, taxes and Social Security benefits. And long-term care, all of these things go into making a decision on when to claim, how to claim, that is very unique to each person that sits in front of somebody.
Well, friends, I've said this for years, and I even talk about it in my book, Bulletproof, the Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. I give specific examples that clients have shared with me about what happened when they went to a dinner that was paid for, or someone came to their house because of a mailer that they received, and what happened in their specific financial institution, in a situation there. But I will say this, I often say, when you go make a financial decision because someone gave you a free dinner at Golden Corral, How much did that buffet cost you? You got paid $14 or $15, maybe a $20 meal, but it may have made tens of thousands, and in some situations, hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference in your overall estate plan if it involves losses, fees, or bad decisions. Maybe it was a choice to trigger Social Security at 62 and that individual lives to be 90 years old, and they left tens of thousands of dollars of income on the table. So make sure that you're very careful about who you talk to, what seminars or dinners you go to regarding Social Security planning or income planning. Hey, I'm in the business of income planning. There's no doubt when you're watching something, I want to talk to you about your finances. But don't be fooled by bait and switch tactics. When you go to a Social Security planning seminar, that person is not just doing it out of the goodness of their heart to say, oh yeah, come get all this free Social Security information and I'll never charge anything and I don't want to know anything else about you. They want to know where your finances are. They want to know about your IRAs and your 401ks and your TSPs and what's in the bank, because they hope that by getting you there to talk to you about your Social Security, they become your financial advisor and get paid on all the other stuff that's there. Just know that going in. And here's the key. Make sure you're working with a qualified financial professional. Do they have any financial designations? Heather's an RICP and an NSSA. I'm an RICP, a CFF, and a CAS. Do they know what they're talking about? Or are they just giving advice out because they hope to sell you something at the end? It's a big, big deal. Ed Slott says on his current PBS show, there's 4 financial freedoms that he wants to protect you from, and one of them is freedom from bad advice. Make sure you're working with a qualified financial professional like Heather, like myself, like anyone who has gone the distance and taken the constant training to keep up with what's factual regarding these type of retirement income decisions. Feel free to call us anytime at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. We will be more than happy to work with you, to sit down with you and show you what would be best in your own specific situation, which is different from everyone. Again, that's 866-780-7233. So friends, thank you so much for joining us today. You might be watching, you might be listening. If you're watching, Heather's information is going to be on the screen the entire time. You'll have access to her website and her phone number. You can go and download her Social Security and monthly newsletter, and you have a way to contact us at all times. Our information will be on the screen. So, Heather, thank you so much for joining us again today. I know we'll have you back on again, but thank you so much.
Oh, it's always my pleasure.
Well, I'm about out of time, and I would like to thank you for listening to Safe Money Radio. If you're serious about your financial future, give me a call, and together we'll get your retirement savings on the fast track to accumulation while reducing exposure to market losses. Thanks for listening, and until next time at the same time, I'm Brad Pistole, reminding you to stay safe so you can step into a secure future.
Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
You've been listening to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole. Find out how to contractually guarantee that your hard-earned money is safe while avoiding market loss so you can have the retirement that you deserve. Call Brad Pistole now for your complimentary Safe Money book and Safe Money information kit at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Surrender charges apply to base annuity contracts. Optional lifetime income benefit riders are used to calculate lifetime payments only and are not available for cash surrender or in a death benefit unless specified in the annuity contract. Fees may apply. Annuity guarantees are based on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the insurance company. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified and licensed professional. Obviously, by calling us now, you're just taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.